studied the moon and became a witch. The more I became interested in the study of the moon, the more I became interested in witchcraft. I remember beginning my spiritual path in a dusty, secondhand book I found at a local antique shop. It was filled with diagrams of constellations, lunar phases, and whispered incantations. The author, a woman named Alara Thorne, wrote with a passion that was infectious. She spoke of the moon not just as a celestial body, but as a living entity, a silent observer of our world, and a powerful source of feminine energy. My fascination with Alara's words led me down a rabbit hole of research. I devoured every book I could find on lunar lore, ancient goddesses, and the history of witchcraft. I learned about the different phases of the moon: new, crescent, first quarter, gibbous, full, and waning, and how each held its own unique energy and purpose. The new moon was for setting intentions, a time of quiet beginnings. The full moon, a time of culmination and power, was perfect for rituals of manifestation and release. The waning moon, a period of introspection and shedding what no longer served me. My small apartment, once a sterile and uninspired space, began to transform. I filled it with crystals that shimmered under the moonlight, herbs that released their fragrant secrets into the air, and candles that flickered with an inner fire. I started a small garden on my windowsill, planting herbs like lavender for peace, rosemary for remembrance, and mugwort for enhancing dreams. Each plant was a connection to the earth, a living embodiment of the magic I was beginning to feel. My first attempts at ritual were simple, almost hesitant. I would sit by my window during the full moon, holding a smooth, dark stone I'd found on a beach, and whisper my desires into the night. I'd light a white candle, the flame dancing in sync with my heartbeat, and meditate on the feeling of my wishes already being fulfilled. It felt silly at first, a childish game of make-believe, but with each passing moon cycle, something shifted. I noticed subtle changes in my life. A sense of calm I hadn't experienced before settled over me. I felt more in tune with my intuition, more confident in my decisions. Small coincidences began to occur with surprising frequency. I'd think of an old friend, and they'd call me the next day. I'd need a specific piece of information, and it would appear in a book I'd randomly picked up. These weren't grand, life-altering events, but they were enough to convince me that there was more to this than just wishful thinking. One evening, during a particularly potent full moon, I decided to try a more involved ritual. I'd read about the practice of moonbathing, of absorbing the lunar energy directly. I cleared a space on my balcony, laid out a soft blanket, and dimmed the lights in my apartment. As the moon rose, casting an ethereal glow, I lay down and closed my eyes. I focused on my breath, feeling the cool night air on my skin, and imagined the moonlight seeping into me, filling me with its silvery light. It was an intensely beautiful experience. I felt a profound sense of connection to the universe, a feeling of being both infinitesimally small and infinitely vast. Images and emotions flooded my mind, flashes of past lives, forgotten memories, and a deep, primal understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. When I finally opened my eyes, the moon was still high in the sky, but I felt utterly transformed. From that night on, my spiritual path deepened. I started practicing tarot, using the cards as a tool for self-reflection and guidance. I learned about the correspondences between the planets, the elements, and the days of the week. I began to understand the power of intention, of focusing my energy and directing it with purpose. I also found a small community of like-minded individuals online. We shared our experiences, our challenges, and our triumphs. It was a revelation to connect with others who understood this path, who didn't look at me with skepticism or ridicule when I spoke of lunar cycles and energy work. We exchanged spells, discussed different traditions, and offered each other support. One of the most significant lessons I learned was about self-acceptance. Witchcraft, as I understood it, wasn't about casting curses or manipulating others. It was about embracing my own power, my own intuition, and my own connection to the natural world. It was about understanding that magic wasn't something external, but something that resided within me, waiting to be awakened. As my journey progressed, I encountered challenges. There were times when doubt crept in, when the mundane world felt overwhelming, and the whispers of magic seemed to fade. I questioned if I was deluding myself, if I was just chasing fantasies. But then the moon would rise, and its steady, unwavering presence would remind me of the ancient rhythms of the earth, of the enduring power of nature. I remember one particularly difficult period where I felt lost and disconnected. My job was stressful, my relationships were strained, and I felt a growing sense of apathy. I hadn't performed a ritual in weeks, and the crystals on my shelf seemed to have lost their luster. One night, feeling particularly low, I found myself drawn to my balcony. The moon was a sliver, barely visible in the pre-dawn sky, but its presence was palpable. I sat there, wrapped in a blanket, and simply watched. I didn't try to manifest anything, didn't try to connect with any deities. I just sat and was. And as the first rays of the sun began to paint the horizon, I felt a gentle warmth spread through me. It was a quiet reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always light, always a cycle of renewal. That experience taught me the importance of patience and perseverance. Spiritual growth isn't linear. There are peaks and valleys, moments of clarity and moments of confusion. The key, I realized, was to keep showing up, to keep tending to the inner flame, even when it felt like it was flickering. Over time, my practice evolved. I learned to create my own spells, tailoring them to my specific needs and intentions. I became more attuned to the subtle energies around me, able to sense shifts in the atmosphere, the moods of plants, and the emotions of others. I learned to trust my intuition implicitly, recognizing it as my inner compass, guiding me through life's complexities. The study of the moon had opened a door to a world I never knew existed. It had led me to witchcraft, not as a set of rules or dogma, but as a way of life, a philosophy of living in harmony with the natural world and with oneself. It was a path of continuous learning, of constant discovery, and of profound self-empowerment. And as I looked up at the moon, a constant companion in my spiritual journey, I knew that this was just the beginning. The universe held so many more secrets, so many more wonders, waiting to be explored.